Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we, well, take a deep dive into a new, fascinating subject each week. Today, we're diving into a life that's, I don't know, glamorous and gritty, a story that almost reads like a Hollywood script. But it had real-world consequences that we can still feel today.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We're talking about Evita Perón.
Ah, Evita. A figure who I think continues to just fascinate, decades after her death.
Absolutely. And to me, what I find so interesting about her story is just how she embodies this incredible mix of ambition and resilience and this really deep connection to the struggles of just everyday people.
Right.
And all of that against the backdrop of Argentina, which was itself going through these dramatic changes.
Yeah, no, you've hit on something really crucial there, and that's the context, right? Context is everything. So try to imagine Argentina in the early 20th century, a country of immigrants booming economically, with Buenos Aires especially, kind of trying to Paris in terms of elegance. But like beneath the surface, there's this huge gap between the wealthy elite and the struggling masses.
It's almost like a powder keg, isn't it?
Exactly. And into this world of stark contrasts and all these tensions bubbling under the surface enters Eva Perón, born Maria Eva Duarte in Los Toldos, a really tiny village. Her early life was far removed from all the glitz and glamour that she'd later come to embody.
Yeah, it's almost like that classic tale of escaping poverty, right? Pursuing a dream. But with Eva, it's all intertwined with this political drama that's unfolding all around her.
Yes, it is. And her childhood really, it lays the groundwork for her later passions, and her ability to connect with people who felt overlooked or forgotten.
Okay, so tell me more about those early years. What kind of impact did they have on her?
Well, her family was poor, and they faced a lot of social stigma because her parents, well, they weren't married. And back then that carried a lot of weight and it limited their opportunities. And then when Eva was just 6 years old, her father died. And her mother insisted on taking the children to the funeral, even though they, weren't considered legitimate by his other family.
Oh, I can only imagine how painful that must have been.
Oh, it was a public humiliation, really. They were practically turned away at the door. And, it left this deep scar on young Eva and fueled this lifelong resentment toward injustice and anyone who looked down on others just because of their circumstances.
So you can already see that sense of being an outsider, of fighting for those who are marginalized, really taking root in her early life.
Absolutely. And then at just 15, she makes this bold move. She leaves Los Toldos and heads for Buenos Aires.
Buenos Aires in the 1930s. Wow, what a time and place.
I know. Think of a mix of New York City and Chicago, bustling with industry and finance and a lot of culture, but also the seedy underbelly. You had these grand opera houses and these elegant cafes, but then also these crowded tenement buildings. There was a sense of both opportunity and danger kind of lurking around every corner.
It must have been both exhilarating and overwhelming for a young woman alone, especially someone from Eva's background.
Oh, definitely. And her early years in the city they were a real struggle. She took on bit parts in plays and modeled, even appeared in a radio science fiction program, anything to break into show business.
I read that she even entered a beauty contest but didn't win.
Right. Yeah, that's right. It's that classic tale of someone trying to make it in a cutthroat industry, facing all this rejection.
But there's this persistence, this fire in her that keeps her going.
Exactly. And she really learns how to navigate this world, how to use her wit and her charm to just get by. There's even this anecdote about an encounter she had with this well-known tango singer, Pablo Suero, who offered her, a pretty degrading proposition.
Oh, tell me about that.
Okay, so according to some accounts, he essentially offered to help her career if she became his mistress. But Eva, fiery as ever, refused. It shows her strong will and her refusal to compromise her values even when she's facing these really tough situations.
You can really see how these experiences, the rejection, the exploitation, would harden her resolve and give her a really deep understanding of how the world can work against those who don't have power and connections.
Precisely. It's almost like she's gathering ammunition, both emotionally and intellectually, that will later fuel her political fire.
But it wasn't all hardship and struggle, was it? Didn't she eventually find success in radio?
She did, and this is where things get really interesting. So in 1930s and 40s Argentina, radio was huge, especially soap operas.
Really? Tell me more about that. I wouldn't have guessed soap operas were such a big deal then.
Oh, they were massive. They reached even the most remote villages. They offered this escape from, from the daily grind and offered stories full of drama and romance and even some social commentary. People were hooked.
So it was kind of like the Netflix of its time, captivating audiences across the country.
You could say that. And Eva, with her emotive acting style and her ability to portray characters who overcame hardship, she became a star.
I can see how that would resonate, especially with women who might have been facing similar challenges in their own lives.
Exactly. She tapped into this deep well of emotion and aspiration, connecting with audiences on this really personal level. And what's fascinating is that it wasn't just entertainment. It was almost like a training ground for politics.
Oh, how so?
Well, think about the skills that you need to be successful in radio. You have to craft a narrative, use your voice to convey emotion, connect with an audience, sell an idea. These are all skills that translate directly to the political stage.
So it's like, almost unknowingly, she's preparing for this much bigger role.
That's a great way to put it, and that's actually where we'll pick up next time. By 1943, Eva is achieving financial stability and recognition through her work in radio. It seems like she's finally escaping the poverty and uncertainty of her early life. But as fate would have it, she's about to step onto this much larger stage, one that will test her resilience and her ambition like never before. Welcome back. So last time we left Eva as this rising radio star, kind of on the verge of this life-changing encounter.
Yeah, that chance meeting with a certain Colonel Juan Perón at this gala, right? It's January 1944, and Argentina is on the brink of some major change.
It's really this moment where personal ambition and these larger historical forces, they kind of collide. It's like the stage is set for these two figures to meet and just ignite something really remarkable.
Okay, so before we dive into that fateful meeting, can you kind of set the scene for us? Like what was happening in Argentina at that time that kind of made it ripe for a leader like Perón to emerge?
Well, you have to understand that Argentina in the 1940s was this nation just brimming with promise, but also discontent. The old power structures, the landed elite, they're starting to crumble, and you had this growing working class that was really demanding a greater share of the pie.
It sounds like a pressure cooker ready to burst.
Exactly. And into this volatile mix steps Juan Perón, this charismatic military man who really understood the pulse of the people.
Yeah, he had that star quality, didn't he? Kind of like Eva, but in the political arena.
Absolutely. And like Eva, he was a master communicator. He saw the power of radio to kind of bypass the traditional gatekeepers and speak directly to the masses.
So he wasn't just charismatic. He was media savvy, kind of ahead of his time, really.
Very much so. Perón really understood that to win over the people, he had to connect with them on an emotional level. He had this almost uncanny ability to make people feel seen and heard, especially the working class who had long been ignored by the political establishment.
And his message, what was it about his ideology that resonated so deeply?
He called it justicialism, and it was essentially this mix of nationalism and social justice and economic intervention, kind of like a third way between communism and unfettered capitalism. He promised to uplift the workers, create a fairer society, and restore Argentina's national pride. It was a really powerful message, especially in a world still, reeling from the Great Depression and the horrors of World War II.
Yeah, it sounds like he was offering hope and stability at a time of great uncertainty.
Precisely. And he wasn't just talking, he was taking action. Perón pushed for labor reforms, higher wages, expanded social safety nets. He even went so far as to nationalize key industries like banking and railroads, much to the chagrin of the old elite.
So he was really putting his money where his mouth was, so to speak. No wonder he was gaining popularity.
Absolutely. And this is where Eva enters the picture. Their meeting at that gala wasn't just a chance encounter. It was almost as if destiny had brought them together.
Okay, so tell me about that first meeting. Was it love at first sight or a clash of titans? Give me the juicy details.
Well, the historical accounts are a bit murky, but what is clear is that they were drawn to each other, both personally and politically. They were both ambitious and charismatic and deeply attuned to the needs of the working class.
Like they were two sides of the same coin, both fighting for a more just and equitable society.
And Eva, she brought something unique to the table, her lived experience. She had known poverty, she had struggled to make it in this male-dominated world. She understood the challenges that everyday Argentines faced in a way that Perón, despite his best intentions, could only observe from a distance.
It sounds like she was a bridge between Perón's ideas and the people he was trying to reach.
Exactly. Eva became Perón's, his confidant, his advisor, his most ardent supporter. She helped him refine his message, connect with the masses on that emotional level, and really build a powerful political movement.
Okay, so we have Perón, the charismatic leader with this compelling vision for New Argentina, and Eva, the fiery, relatable advocate who can connect with the people's hearts and minds. It sounds like an unstoppable duo.
And they certainly shook things up. With Eva at his side, Perón became bolder in his challenges to the old guard. He pushed harder for social reforms, championed the rights of women and the working class, and his popularity soared.
But not everyone was cheering.
Yeah.
Right. I'm guessing the old elite, those who benefited from the status quo, they weren't too happy with these developments.
Oh, they were furious. They saw Perón as this dangerous populist, a threat to their power and privilege. And they especially loathed Eva. They saw her as this upstart, a social climber who dared to challenge their authority.
Yeah, I can almost see the disdain in their eyes,
Yeah.
the whispers behind closed doors.
Oh, for sure. They used their influence in the media, the military, the upper echelons of society to try to discredit Perón and smear Eva's reputation. They spread rumors about her past, accused her of being, power-hungry and manipulative, and they tried to paint her as this threat to traditional Argentine values.
It's amazing how often we see that pattern repeat itself throughout history.
Yeah.
Powerful women who challenge the established order are often met with resistance, attempts to tear them down.
It's a sad truth. But Eva refused to be silenced. She embraced the role of the people's champion,
Yeah.
fighting back against the elite with these fiery speeches and a tireless dedication to helping the poor and the marginalized.
So she wasn't just a political wife. She was a force in her own right. And despite the opposition, Perón's popularity just kept growing.
Absolutely. The people saw him as a champion and Eva as their advocate. They were a formidable team and their rise to power seemed unstoppable. But as with any good story, there were challenges and setbacks ahead. So in October 1945, just as Perón was consolidating his power, he was arrested, imprisoned in this military coup that was orchestrated by his opponents.
Oh, wow. That must have been a crushing blow. What did Eva do? Did she retreat into the shadows?
Not at all. In fact, this is where Eva's true mettle was tested. She sprang into action, rallying Perón's supporters, organizing these massive protests, using her radio platform to denounce the coup and demand his release.
It's like she stepped out of the soap opera and into this real life drama, leading the charge with the same passion and determination that she showed on the airwaves.
It's a great analogy. And her efforts were successful. The sheer outpouring of support for Perón, fueled by her tireless campaigning, it overwhelmed the coup leaders and they were forced to release him.
Wow. So she was instrumental in saving his political career.
Absolutely. And just a few months later, Perón swept to victory in this landslide presidential election. The Perón era had begun, and with it, this profound transformation of Argentine society. And Eva, the one-time aspiring actress from this small village, she stood beside him, ready to make her mark on history.
This is incredible. It's like this real-life fairy tale, but with real-world stakes, real-world consequences.
Yeah.
But I can already sense that this is just the beginning. The drama is just getting started.
You could say that. The Perón era and Eva's role in it is just heating up. Join us next time as we delve into their years in power and the legacy that they left behind, a legacy that is still debated to this day.
We left off last time with Juan Perón, elected president, and Eva right by his side, ready to kind of reshape Argentina, really. What did that actually look like for everyday people?
Well, for Perón's supporters, especially the working class, it felt like a revolution. I mean, Perón, with Eva as his advocate, enacted all these sweeping policies to really improve their lives.
Okay, give me some specifics. What kind of changes did they actually see?
Imagine this wave of social and economic reforms just washing over the country. Wages increased, working conditions improved, and Social Security expanded. Affordable housing projects, they sprung up everywhere, and access to healthcare became much more readily available. Perón even nationalized industries like banking and the railroads, taking them out of the hands of the elite and putting them under state control.
It really sounds like he was trying to level the playing field, to give the working class a real stake in the country's future.
Exactly. That was the core of his justicialism, right? This idea of social justice, economic fairness, and national unity. And Eva was really, really crucial in making that vision a reality. She wasn't content to just be a figurehead.
Yeah, we talked before about her foundation, the Eva Perón Foundation. What role did that play in all of this?
It became a powerhouse of social change, really. Eva channeled her energy and her deep empathy for the poor into this foundation. She built hospitals and schools, orphanages, even entire neighborhoods for the working class.
It almost sounds like she was creating this parallel system of social support, one that bypassed the traditional institutions that had often, failed the working class.
That's a great way to put it. And she was deeply involved, personally overseeing projects, visiting with people, making sure their needs were actually being met.
I can really see why she was so beloved by the people. It wasn't just policy, right? It was this personal connection, this sense that she genuinely cared.
And she wasn't, afraid to get her hands dirty. There are countless stories of Eva personally intervening to help people in need, cutting through red tape, providing financial assistance, even finding homes for people who had been displaced. She was this tireless advocate, always fighting for the underdog.
Which is such a stark contrast to the image her opponents tried to paint of her, right?
Yeah.
As this power-hungry manipulator.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The elite, the old guard, they never accepted her. They saw her as a threat, as this embodiment of this new social order that was challenging their power and their privilege.
They probably saw her as, the vulgar, uncultured, someone who didn't belong in their world of high society and political maneuvering.
Precisely. They couldn't stomach the fact that this woman from such a humble background had risen to such a position of influence. They used their newspapers and their social circles, their connections to whisper about her, to spread rumors, to try and diminish her accomplishments.
It seems like they really underestimated her strength, her resilience, her deep connection with the people. It's almost like they didn't realize that by attacking her, they were only making her stronger. Making her a martyr in the eyes of her supporters.
Exactly. The more they tried to tear her down, the more the people rallied around her. She became this symbol of hope, a testament to the idea that anyone, regardless of their background, could rise to a position of power and influence.
So we had this dynamic playing out, right? The Perons, they're fighting for social justice and economic equality, and the old guard, they're desperately clinging to their fading power. So what happens next in this saga?
Well, Perun's first term was relatively successful, but by his second term, starting in 1952, cracks started to show. The economy, which had boomed during the war years, it started to falter. Inflation rose, foreign investment dried up, and social unrest grew.
Was this the beginning of the end for the Perón regime?
Not quite yet, but the challenges were definitely mounting. And Perón, facing all these economic headwinds, he started to become more authoritarian in his approach. He cracked down on dissent, censored the press, and tightened his grip on power.
And how did Eva respond to this shift towards authoritarianism? Was she supportive? Did she try to moderate his approach?
That's a question that historians still debate. It's clear that Eva's own health was deteriorating. She'd been diagnosed with cervical cancer in 1950, and despite undergoing treatment, her condition it just worsened. But even as her physical strength faded, her political ambitions, they seemed to grow stronger.
Yeah, she was a fighter, that's for sure. It's almost like she knew that the time was running out, and she was determined to make the most of every moment.
Absolutely. In 1951, she even attempted to run for vice president on Perón's ticket. It was this bold move, one that really sent shockwaves through the political establishment.
Can you imagine the reaction? A woman and one from her background aspiring to such a high office. It must have been Must have been incredibly controversial.
Oh, it was. Her opponents were outraged. And even some of Perón's own supporters, they were hesitant. But Eva was undeterred. She saw it as this chance to further solidify her position, to continue fighting for the people she loved.
But it wasn't meant to be, was it?
Sadly, no. Facing mounting pressure from the military and her own declining health, Eva was forced to withdraw her candidacy. It must have been a heartbreaking decision.
But even in her final months, she didn't retreat from public life, did she?
Not at all. She continued to make public appearances, delivering these fiery speeches from the balcony of the presidential palace, rallying her supporters and denouncing her enemies. She was this symbol of defiance, of courage in the face of adversity. She became almost this mythical figure and icon for the working class, for women, for anyone who dared to dream of a better life.
Yeah, it's a truly remarkable story, and tragically, her story ends far, far too soon.
In July 1952, at just 33 years old, Eva Perón succumbed to cancer. Her death just plunged Argentina into mourning. Millions of people lined the streets of Buenos Aires to pay their respects. Her funeral was this massive spectacle, really a testament to the love and the adoration that she inspired.
Her life was short, but her impact was immense. What a legacy.
Yeah, and one that continues to be debated to this day. Was she a saint or a sinner, a champion of the people or a power-hungry manipulator? I think the truth probably lies somewhere in between. Eva was a complex figure, a product of her time, driven by both ambition and a genuine desire to improve the lives of others.
Yeah, her story is a reminder that history is rarely black and white. It's full of nuance and contradictions and individuals who really defy easy categorization.
Exactly. And Eva Perón, for all her flaws and complexities, she was a force of nature. She left an undeniable mark on Argentina, and her story continues to fascinate and inspire people all around the world. She reminds us that even those from the humblest of beginnings can rise to positions of power and influence, and that one person can really make a difference in the world.
It's a legacy that continues to spark debate, to inspire art, and to remind us of the enduring power of a life lived with passion and purpose.
And that's what makes exploring history so captivating, isn't it? We uncover these remarkable figures, these turning points, these moments that just continue to resonate through time.
Well, thank you for taking us on this incredible journey, for shedding light on this complex and fascinating figure. It's a story I won't soon forget.
Oh, it was my pleasure. And to our listeners, I encourage you to continue exploring, to keep digging deeper into the lives and the events that have shaped our world. There are countless stories out there waiting to be discovered, and who knows, you might just find yourself face to face with history in a way that you never expected.